like they were useful and then they stopped being useful. So can we just like kill the human?
I mean, at a certain point, I think like if they have like passive income, which most people have like a 401k, and that's still like contributing to taxes.
No, they're not. They would be sucking from taxes. So, I mean, if they're useless, right? Why not get rid of them?
Maybe I would say I'm maybe like on the fence about that. I think you have to be more
Dude,
specific about, like,
you shouldn't be on the fence on this. Savant.
Okay, so your view, you think that abortion should be restricted after 20 weeks, right?
I think that abortion should be considered, that the life of the child should be considered.
Okay, so I disagree with that.
Okay.
So I guess I can go first. So like after 20 weeks, like I don't think there's like a magic switch that flips.
Mhm.
Like I don't think you can really fully consider it a person because it doesn't pay taxes. It doesn't like contribute to society. So if you're gonna have like a social contract, like I don't think it's fair to expect the parent to like take care of the child because the child's not like doing anything for them.
Okay. Well, I mean, so I guess like my question is you want to extend it, I guess, further than 20 weeks.
Yeah. I mean, I think like if you're not gonna like go adopt the child, then I think it has to be up to the person who you're like expecting to take care of the child. Like,
so
they wanna
mind you, right? Like
euthanize it, they
when I
wanna-
said that it's up for moral consideration is what I said.
Okay.
So it's not me saying,
just-
okay, it should, after 20 weeks, it ought be illegal, right? But rather it ought be up for moral consideration. Like, for example, I take the life of the mother way above the child, right? The unborn fetus. And so, however, at 20 weeks, you know, that's where you start getting into the realm of effectively possessing its own conscious experience. And so it's situations like that where I go, okay, well, we kind of don't want to abort it because it is having a human conscious experience. That's kind of where I'm at with it. But
I disagree. I disagree that the conscious experience means it should be up for moral consideration. Like I think if you want to be like considered a person, like you've got like even insects have like some kind of consciousness. So like it's not paying taxes. It's not, you know, we wouldn't
conscious
give, like,
experience isn't the
fetus the
same
right
as
to
a
vote,
consciousness.
Well, okay, but like to be considered like a person, like a part of society, I think you do need to have like some skin in the game.
Well, okay, I guess what I'm trying to say is, like, if I'm going to refer to a conscious experience, what
Yeah.
I'm referring to is like you're effectively responding to external sense stimuli. You can feel things, touch things, see things, hear things, right? And
Yeah, I don't think that should make it considered a person.
Okay, so then what would you consider it?
So I would say like once someone's like contribute, like if the parents like care about it, then okay, like it belongs to the parents, right? But then if someone's like paying taxes, they can like be held, like, they can go to jail, they can like be
You don't pay
conscripted,
taxes until you're 18.
Okay, but like I'm
Or
presuming like in
rather,
most
until you
cases,
get a
like,
job,
the parent-
16, sorry.
Wait, but then it like belongs to the parent, right? Like the parent in most cases like cares about it, right? Like they're not just gonna get rid of a kid for like no reason.
Yes.
Okay, so if it's an extension of the parent, then if the parent doesn't care about it, then it shouldn't have moral consideration.
No, because I believe that even as a fetus, there's a level of like bodily autonomy, and I believe it stems from conscious experience.
Well, I wouldn't say bodily autonomy stemming from conscious experience. Like it can't survive on its own. So.
Well, no,
you can't
because
really
it's
say
not
that.
a matter of survive on its own. It's a matter of conscious experience.
No, I don't. I disagree that it's a matter of conscious experience because we were talking about bodily
Well, to
autonomy.
me, it is.
right? Well, okay, but I'm saying like scientifically, like as if you're gonna say autonomy, that means like acting on its own. So I don't think you can have like even like a newborn or something.
Okay,
that's,
let
like,
me
10 months.
let me see if I can. Okay, I think maybe my wording is incorrect for autonomy, but I'll try to clarify what I mean by autonomy, I guess. So when I think about like autonomy in general,
Yeah.
what I want is that that the children, right, that the parent can't do whatever they want with the body of the child, right? Like, they can't do. What?
I disagree, kind of. Like, I think in most cases, like, most parents aren't just like gonna get rid of it for no reason. But
No. Can like a parent like abuse their child?
Well, I think like euthanization would be like an easier thing, but I don't. Like,
I'm saying
I don't think
like
they're gonna abuse
like can a parent abuse their child?
abuse.
Yeah.
That's in the realm where I might say like we shouldn't encourage it.
Well, I mean, I would say absolutely not, because I believe that the child possesses their own bodily autonomy, right? Like it's kind of like, I don't know, like I notice like a lot of people who, typically Republicans, I've noticed
Exactly.
that Republicans have tend to view children in terms of like property instead of like them being their own person. And so I guess what I'm trying to establish is by saying autonomy, right? I'm referring to like they are their own person, right? A parent can't abuse like the rights of that child, right? Does that make sense?
Well, I would say like the child can only have autonomy because of the parents, right? Like, until like at some point, maybe at like age 10, they can start like
No.
they
The
start
government
contributing
will
to
put you in jail if you abuse your child, right? Like if I
Well,
locked
I
my
don't think-
if I had a child and I decided, okay, I'm going to lock my child in a closet, for 10 years of its life, I go to jail, right? I'm going to jail, right? If I get discovered.
Well, I think at that age, like they contribute to society somewhat. Like they can pay like
Not
sales
at all.
taxes.
They sat there their whole life in a closet. And
That's it.
contribute.
Okay, but then you're preventing the child from contributing to society by like locking it in a closet.
I,
Because at that age,
I guess
it
like
is,
what I'm trying to say
capable
is
of
like they
paying.
have their own autonomy, right? They possess
Okay,
their
but
own
if we're talking about
rights.
like after 20 weeks in the womb,
Yes.
that's not autonomy.
Okay, so that's kind of where I'm at though, is that like I have to ask myself what is it that I care about more than anything, right? Regarding like humans, like what is it about humans? And the thing that I could kind of suss out was that it had to have been
Excellent.
conscious experience, right? Is basically what it broke down to.
Okay, but like I disagree with this. So like in terms of social contract, right? Like I'm motivated to like contribute to pay taxes for other people if they're paying taxes for me. Like if they're conscious, that's not doing really anything for
Taxes
anybody else in
doesn't
society.
really, because like take for example, if there was like a hermit that's like living out in the woods
Yeah.
just to avoid paying taxes, I would give them the same
that's
amount of
tax
bodily autonomy as like somebody who's paying taxes.
Well, okay, but that's the hermit like should be paying taxes.
That's
and
correct.
you can
but
like
they still have bodily
Okay,
autonomy
but-
though.
okay, but that's because they have like the capacity they can be taxed. Like if
I
they
guess
were,
so.
like,
I'm just saying,
arrested or,
like you'd probably care about the person who's like a hermit, right? Like you would treat them as a human
because
being,
they
like
can
not
be
because they
taxed.
don't. Well, not really. I mean, the guy's off the grid.
Okay, but as soon as I'm like capable of doing something to the hermit, like let's say like I'm not gonna go murder the hermit because once I like know where they are, I can just like report them to the IRS and they can pay taxes.
Okay, well, what if they're like a libertarian billionaire and they like found like a loophole in the?
Okay, well I think
I guess
billionaires are a
what
drain
I'm
on
trying to.
society.
Huh?
I think billionaires are a drain on society.
Okay, they're not a billionaire; they're a millionaire, and they
Okay,
found
they're
a legal
millionaires.
loophole
If they're not
to
paying
make their
taxes,
own
they're
like
still,
international island, and now they're their own country, right? And so like
International
like
island.
do you give them like their own bodily autonomy or?
We'll give them their own. Well, at that point, like, what can I do to them, right? Like, I think if they're opting out of society,
Well, I'm saying like if you saw them, right, you knew this about them, right, you wouldn't be like, okay, well, I can kill you, right? Like you would consider
Well,
it to be morally reprehensible to kill them, right?
Well, if I saw them, that's assuming that I'm like going to their island and going and accepting the laws of their island. If they're like in the U.S. and they're like, presumably somehow they paid off some politician to not pay taxes, like, okay, you're not respecting my rights. You're not like a part of the social contract.
So, okay, hold on. So would you be okay with killing them? Like you would have no
weird,
moral
like, scenario
consideration
you're
in there?
describing, maybe.
Okay, all right. So I guess what
think-
I'm trying to suss out is like, I think, if I'm not mistaken, you probably look to people more than just whether or not they can pay taxes as to whether or not you respect
taxes
their
is one
bodily
example.
autonomy.
Taxes is one example. Like there's
Okay.
other ways people contribute to society. Like they can like they have understanding of laws.
So-
they can be like conscripted for jury duty.
Okay, so
They can like
wait, that's a really good. Okay, so hold on. If somebody then didn't contribute to society, like they're just like an economic drain their whole life.
well, that's the point. Is the fetus is an economic drain. So I would say like why should it be like part of the social contract?
Well, I'm talking about like,
Especially if,
I don't know, just somebody that's like on welfare. They're like,
Well, I don't think I think most people on welfare like they don't stay on it forever.
no, I'm saying like, as a hypothetical, we have a person who just, you know, they just never do anything with their life. They just go on welfare and they just are an economic drain. I don't know, maybe they sue somebody for like millions of dollars and they made millions of dollars and that's it.
That's not really because
They're just like a drain.
They still pay taxes. They can still be conscripted. They can still be like have jury duty. So they are contributing in some sense. With, like,
No,
a
they're
child,
an
like,
economic
I wouldn't
drain
really call it a
because like
child.
they may pay
But-
taxes, but they're taking out more than they're putting in.
I don't know that you can really just measure it in those terms. Like let's say you
I
have, like, a
agree. I
newborn, or,
don't
like-
think you can measure it in those terms. That's why I'm saying
Okay,
that
but
it's
it's just
the
more
conscious
clear-cut with,
experience
like-
that matters, not their level of contribution in society. I think that even a person who is completely useless to the system still possesses bodily autonomy, and I think you agree with that, right? You sound like a pretty
What
reasonable
about
guy.
like an insect though that has like some sensory of pain?
Well, they don't have
What about, like,
they don't have a human conscious experience, right?
Well, not a
I-
human
I'm also-
conscious
they-
experience, right?
Yeah.
But like a
Yes, I care about
horse
them
is
less.
like more intelligent than like a newborn.
A
We
what?
wouldn't say like the horse is like a person.
Oh, yeah, I would agree with you. Like we wouldn't, yeah, because it's not a, okay, fair enough. So we have to caveat in my argument that, it effectively has to be a human for me to care about it.
But then that's the question is like, is why should we value the human just because it's a human? Like that's like a
Because I'm a
religious
human.
argument. Like I don't like rather than like I'm concerned with like not like with the religious superstition behind it, but like the science, right? So like scientifically, like a horse is going to be smarter than a human. It can even contribute to society more than like a newborn contributes to society. Like most newborns, I would say, is like they belong to the parent, so the parent can like it has value as an extension of that. But like a horse, it can like on a farm or something, like they still get used to some extent. But like a newborn, it's not really contributing much. And I just don't see, unless you're gonna like say we should start looking at like religious or like objective morality and start like
Well, I'm not doing
using
that
that
either. I'm not doing a religious argument. I'm merely pointing out like, okay, I'm a human. I would prefer
Yeah.
it if people would respect my bodily autonomy, right? And so I want to respect other people's bodily autonomy. And then the question is okay, well, what like really matters when it comes to like being human? And it's like I think it's the conscious experience. I really, really genuinely in my heart of hearts believe that. I don't think it's paying taxes. I don't think it's being, useful to society. We are humans. We take care of, our brethren, right? Even if they are, economically useless.
Well, okay, so I mean, I think we established that it's not just the conscious experience because, like, the horse we don't consider a person. But if we're gonna say like, okay, not just like conscious experience, we have to add a caveat on there. I'm gonna say like, okay, I'm a human, but I pay taxes. I go to like, I can be conscripted. I can go to like jury duty. So if I extend that, if I want to be like fair about who I'm considering to be a person without like appealing to like some religious morality thing, I would say, okay, so it has to be contributing to society at least some extent, like paying taxes, or like at least being eligible.
I mean, to be a human,
for-
you just need to have the taxonomic classification of the of Homo
Okay, but
sapien
I
sapien,
just-
right?
I don't see
And
how
I'd
the
be satisfied with
taxonomic-
that, right?
I mean, the taxonomic classification, I have to say, like, what's the benefit to society of just valuing that taxonomic classification? Because,
I mean, the only value is that like you respect other people's lives, which in turn benefit you.
well, I respect other taxpayers' lives, which in turn benefits me because I'm also paying taxes.
But I think it's beyond taxes. Like,
Okay, so I mean, as I keep saying, like, taxes is just one example of the type of. Okay, yeah, someone says that, like, potential of exchanging ideas. Like, a newborn isn't gonna like exchange ideas. A newborn isn't gonna like invent anything. So, I mean, or not, like, in its current state, it doesn't have a capacity for that. So I think, like, if we're not even going to consider a horse to be like a person, then we need like a standard of like some level of contribution to society.
well, the taxonomic
Like,
classification is what makes it.
okay, but
Well,
then
rather, not
we
even
can-
it's the properties that we describe as the taxonomic classification. Is that what it is?
Okay. But I mean, with one taxonomic classification, if we're going to appeal to that, then I think one is as good as another. Like, you could say there's clearly a taxonomic difference.
Well, no,
between,
because
like,
I only have
newborn
one
and
taxonomic
adult.
classification, and that is human. We're Homo sapiens sapiens, right? We're
and
not a horse. We're
If
not.
if we're not going to expand that classification to other species, then why should we expand it from like adult humans? I think we would agree are persons, right? And there's a taxonomic classification there, but you could say like a newborn is very, very different from an adult. So if you're gonna like limit the taxonomic classification to humans, why not limit it to humans of the age where they're contributing to society?
Well, because I'm sorry. Can you repeat the question? I'm having a very, very
So
frustrating time
if we're
in
choosing,
Metroid.
okay,
Sorry.
so if we're limiting, I would say, personhood, right? If we're limiting it to certain taxonomic classifications, right? You're willing to limit that to only humans, right? And I'm saying that I'm willing to limit it to humans above some age where they're going to contribute to society in some sense. Okay, and it seems like my classification is as arbitrary as your classification, except the only difference is that mine has some metric of value to society. So there's something objective there where you can say there's a benefit to this classification. I mean, also at a certain point, you were talking about like a drain on society. I mean, regardless of how you feel, like if you intuitively want to like give rights to somebody, but like I think there's just too many humans on the planet. Like at some point, like the foster care system's like overwhelmed. You have a lot of kids are just gonna get like shot in school or like because they're not vaccinated or something, and I would say like quality over quantity.
I mean, that seems kind of weird. You're like saying there's too many people, and I mean, like I agree with you. There are too many people, but I don't think my reasoning for like abortion really takes that into account, right? Like I don't look at I don't know. There's too many people, so we should kill more people. Like, just seems
Well,
kind
I
of
wouldn't
weird.
consider it a person if it's not like contributing.
Well, I think it's a person, right? Like taxonomically speaking, it is a person.
Well, I mean,
But
I don't think you can
the question
taxonomically.
is not whether or not it's a person, but what is the moral consideration, right? And so like
No, I agree.
I
It doesn't matter like whether it's a person. Like if it's like a person, a horse, or whatever. The question I'm gonna ask is like, is it useful to society? Like, is there a reason to like care? I mean, we agree. So like, if it doesn't matter if it's a person, right? So it
well,
doesn't matter if it's
horses
like
are useful to society, are they not?
yeah. No, I agree. That's why we keep some horses alive, right? But then like if
Well,
there's like
we kind
a
of just,
surplus
I mean,
of
like,
horses-
here's the thing, right? Like, if it's like even slightly useless, we just kind of kill it, right? Do you think that like if that we could do that with humans?
Well, do we kill any horse that's slightly useless?
Yeah.
I don't. I mean, we. No, I mean,
Yeah, we do it all
you
the
would
time.
use
We do
you-
it when they can't run anymore, like they break one of their ankles, we
that's
just
not
shoot them.
slightly used. That's like very useless. Like if they can't.
Well, I mean,
do anything.
okay, so then we just get rid of like useless people. Why not?
Well,
Right?
that's kind of like I would say do it early, right? Like when it's still like a newborn or still
Why?
like
Wait, why do it early?
like okay, well because then you're not spending as many resources on them.
Okay, but like they were useful and then they stopped being useful. So can we just like kill the human?
I mean, at a certain point, I think like if they have like passive income, which most people have like a 401k, and that's still like contributing to taxes.
No, they're not. They would be sucking from taxes. So, I mean, if they're useless, right? Why not get rid of them?
Maybe I would say I'm maybe like on the fence about that. I think you have to be more
Dude,
specific about, like,
you shouldn't be on the fence on this.
Well, I'm just saying, like clearly we agree that we're not like basing this on like some religious thing of like, oh, children are the future or something. Like, it's not like they have like a soul. Like, I think you just have to be like objective about like who are you including in the social contract. Like, if they're not benefiting, like, okay, like maybe if you said they used to be useful, right? So
Yeah.
then that meant they did pay taxes or they did do something.
Yeah.
So okay, I could see like exchanging something for that. But
Well, but
like,
I guess
you're
my
talking about
problem
anyone
is
that's never paid taxes.
I guess my concern is that the way that you're probably valuing humans, I think, is likely different, right? I can't imagine you would want to just kill people that are useless, right? Obviously, like that would probably be not acceptable.
Like I would like a corpse or something like that's useless. So we just we
Well, I
bury
mean, like
corpses,
a person who's say like is like a quadriplegic, right, and is just like sucking money from the state would be effectively
but, like,
be
what were they
useless,
they
right?
became, like, a
All intents and purposes. But I wouldn't want to kill that person, right? Because like what is it? What is it about them that they get? Well, I believe that they possess a conscious experience and they will continue to have a conscious experience in the future as they did before. And so I bestow upon them the inalienable rights bestowed by human reason. There you go.
Well, I think
I did it without religion.
I think your example supports my point, right? Because like quadriplegics, they can still work like a desk job. They can still pay taxes. They can still have jury duty.
No.
And they can't have jury duty?
Let me think about that. If they can talk, they can probably have jury duty.
Okay. Yeah, if they can talk, right? So, and even people who are like locked in, they can like write books. They can do that, but like a newborn's not going to write a book.
Well, quadriplegic is.
What about a mute quadriplegic?
A mute quadriplegic? Well, they can communicate in some sense.
Daniel, hush.
You could start like chopping away senses. If your example is going to be like a person who literally can't do anything and can't like once you take away their capacity to work,
I mean, there's a chance, right?
Like you just described like a corpse.
Oh,
Also, like 1-year-olds, I can tell you from personal experience, having had two of those in the past, because now they're not 1-year-old anymore. They're pretty fucking useless. And not only are they useless, they're literally a drain on the finances
that's why I say
of the
that
parents
the 1-year-old is an
and on
extension
society.
of like the parent.
Yeah, but you can say the same thing about like a fetus, right?
Yeah, exactly. So it's an extension of the parent, like a fetus. So yeah.
So
that's what I'm saying.
the reason we're not killing the 1-year-old is for moral reasons, right?
Well, no, it's because the parent values it, and so
yeah,
would say,
it's a
like,
moral reason. Like
so wait, but if the parent didn't value, hold on, wait, if the parent didn't value a 1-year-old, sorry, I'm gonna Daniel after.
Yeah, no worries.
I don't want to tag team you, Savant, so I apologize. If the parent didn't value the 1-year-old, like by your metric, right, you could just like kill them.
Well, I mean, if you could find like a 1-year-old that like pays taxes, could like have jury duty or something, but I don't think you're gonna find that. I mean, I don't, but like I presume if the parents do, then I do. But like in the
I'm saying the parent doesn't value them, right? But like me personally, like if I saw like an adult like kill a 1-year-old because they didn't value them, I'd be like, okay, you're a murderer, you're a monster.
Okay, but
we have to put you in a box.
The parent who's saying they don't value them. Like I think this was like this was well accepted before like if you see like the origin in like the Roman Empire and stuff, like they well accepted that like if the 1-year-old wasn't like contributing to society.
Oh, the Roman Empire had slaves. Why would I want to use the Roman Empire as an example?
No, because I think this is an example of like religious morality coming in and dictating it, because that was like when the religious people came in and they're like, okay, like infanticide you shouldn't do, even though there wasn't like a clear benefit to society.
But
I strongly believe infanticide was frowned upon way before Christianity, for example.
Well, it was by like a small minority. It was like still widely practiced.
I don't think it was wildly practiced.
That's very strange to me. Like to me, it's like infanticide is completely unacceptable from multiple cultures, right? Like I don't care what what the Romans did, right? I think I can die on the hill in saying that infanticide is terrible and shouldn't happen.
Well, the infants would also die on the hill, but that's the point. Like, I think that if we're gonna like extend the let's say like where we agree on like abortion, we're like, okay, it's not a person or it's not contributing to society. It's not like it's still dependent in the same way that like a fetus is dependent, or like the first like 20 weeks or something. I don't think it like suddenly becomes like less of a burden. Like at a certain point, I think you're saying you're like punishing the parents by saying they have to raise the child just because they had it.
No,
I'm saying,
I'm
like,
saying
no,
that like I want to live in a society where people aren't killing their children, right?
Okay, well, I don't think it's like up to us. Like I think some people would say, oh,
What?
I want to live
Yeah,
in
it
a
is.
society
What do you
where, like,
mean?
abortion is banned. But,
Well, no. So when it comes to
mean-
abortion, right, I'm able to. This is kind of where my cutoff point is that like what I consider to be important is whether or not that that it had a conscious experience before, just as it would in the future, right? And
Well, I think
the
this
way
is
that
kinda
I've been
going in a
able
circle.
to
You've already agreed
determine
that
exactly
conscious
20
experience
years has
alone-
been, or I'm sorry, 20 weeks. Sorry, not 20 years. The reason why I determined that it was 20 weeks is because that is approximately the point where the spinal cord is fully connected with the brain stem. This basically allows the child's like body movements to coordinate with its brain, effectively having a conscious experience, right? Not remembering things, mind you, right? It's just consciously aware, experiencing things.
Yeah, but the conscious experience is like entirely dependent still on the parent, like supporting it bodily, like
Yes.
even though it's more like a beneficiary of a conscious experience. I
No,
would say,
no. It
does it have the
itself
right
is
to
having
have
a
that
conscious experience, right? It like if you've noticed, like if you like play peekaboo with a baby, the baby will like react, right? It's having external sense stimuli and it's being stimulated from its from its surroundings.
Yeah, but you could still say the same, like all these things about like a horse or about like
Yeah, but those
what
aren't
we're
humans,
disputing
right? We're
here
talking about
is
humans,
whether-
not horses.
But that's the point. Is I don't think that what we're disputing is the classification of humans, like taxonomically, right? So we agree taxonomical classifications of humans is not enough because like an embryo is a human, but not a person. We agree that consciousness is not enough because a horse is like conscious, but still not a person.
Well, we don't care
So I
about it
think the
because it
only thing-
doesn't. It's not having a human conscious experience, right? It's not a human.
Okay,
I don't care about the
human-
horse. I care about the humans.
Okay, but you're conflating two things, which is human conscious experience. On their own, I think we agree that not all conscious things are persons, and not all humans are persons. So we could just arbitrarily combine those, but I think it's much more consistent. I think we should apply Occam's razor and just go for the simplest explanation, which is like the point of a social contract and value is what it's contributing to society, which is why I use the principle of like taxation or jury duty or other duties that people have to society. Like right before we like formed a society and expected everyone to contribute, we had like
I think like I could
Yeah, we're
have
the
like
tribes
say for example, I could probably have a Republican if they believed in what you said. They would be able to justify all sorts of horrible stuff.
Okay, well, I don't think like a Republican is gonna care about like what's logically consistent. So just
That's
saying like
fair.
a Republican can look.
But,
Just saying a Republican
but
can.
do you
look at
understand,
something
right? Like that they would be like, well, these people, they're socially degenerate. They don't actually contribute to society, so we should kill them, right? Like that would be
I think
like
a Republican's gonna say that anyway, no matter what kind of argument I make.
that's kind of true. But I'm saying that like you're kind of landing in the same boat, and I'm just like, okay, well, I kind of don't want to live in that kind of society. I wish people would, even if I was, useless, economically speaking, or like I don't like contribute. Like if I decided to be a hermit, that's up to me to make that decision. And I think people should value that decision, right? Like they shouldn't have to like disrespect me or my body just because I decided to be a hermit.
Okay, I guess we can sort of like that's kind of like the slippery slope argument of what can apply. I think you can kind of apply that to like anything. I mean, you're gonna have like whatever small amount of like on the left pro-life people are gonna say, okay, if you allow abortion, then it's gonna like allow people to like dehumanize or whatever. I mean, let's like ignoring the slippery slope for a second. Let's also like let's take the child. I'll call it a child just for the sake of argument. Let's take it out of the equation, and let's talk about like everybody else. Like, what are you expect when you say there's like some moral value you're attributing to this being? I guess what are you expecting of everyone else? Like, is it fair to expect like a woman who's pregnant at like 21 weeks or 23 weeks to take into consideration what's like effectively a parasite? Like just ignoring the conscious experience. I don't think it's fair to say you ought
Well,
to
I
take
think
this into account,
that the
because it's
baby should
flawed.
be up for moral consideration, right? So basically, unless if you have an instance where like the mother's life is in danger, or I don't know, maybe a certain moral consideration, then I would basically want to prefer the life of the baby at 21 weeks, and this is actually a very small window, because it's actually anywhere between from 20 to 25 weeks where this window would exist, and then at 25 weeks the abortion is a cesarean section. That's the abortion, right? Because it's literally viable outside of the womb. So
Well,
like if
that's
you
one
waited
form of
that
abortion.
long, like I'm sorry, I feel like I'm being very, very charitable in my interpretation regarding abortion, in that this addresses 99.9999% of cases, right, where people aren't going to be wanting an abortion between 21 weeks to 25 weeks.
Well, when you say that abortion is a cesarean section, that's because like legally it has to be, right? Like if you just like physically allow,
No, I'm
you
saying
could
like
do the
that's
kind where you,
viable,
like,
right? Like why are we killing the child at 25
because
weeks? It's
you're-
viable.
you're ending the pregnancy, but you're not ending like the amount of money that's going to have to be spent.
But
You're not
adopt
ending
it.
all
Adopt
the...
it. Just send it for adoption.
Okay, but I mean, like, are you going to go adopt the child? Like, I think
Am I going to go
Like,
adopt the
yeah,
child? No.
exactly, that's the point. And just like that's the point, is somebody's going to like know that they have like a biological child out there. I don't know that it's just like the adoption thing. Like we have the foster care system is like very underfunded already. We've already got,
Hold
like,
on,
a
hold
ton
on.
of
So
kids
what
in
I'm
the foster-
arguing, right, would not increase the foster care system at all.
Okay. But you're assuming that every child is going to be adopted when that's not like the case
I mean,
for every
so you're
category.
aware, right?
Like,
We already have the policy of we've taken a step backward. We've made things worse by saying, okay, well, we in certain states women don't have as much rights. And what I'm saying is, hey, that needs to be codified. We need to
Exactly.
put that back. And now that it is codified that women have their rights, now we have it at between the 20 week to 25 week to be worried about. But that's not even close to even a fraction of a percent of people that would actually get an abortion even at that point. Right. And even then, I say between the 21 to 25 weeks is the child is up for moral consideration. Right. So like under certain contexts, you could still have the abortion.
I mean, I think the moral consideration thing is kind of a zero-sum game. Like it's like a pregnancy is like a war between like the mother and the fetus. So like if you're saying like the fetus has more moral consideration, its interests are like diametrically opposed to the woman. So if you're saying that the fetus has more moral consideration, you have to be saying that the woman is having less. And I'm not willing to accept that. Like I'm not willing to accept that women should only have rights when they're pregnant. I think that's you gotta like look at like what's the contribution to society. Like a cesarean section, you can still do. There's like it's still inside the body of the woman. So if she wants to take it out like one piece at a time, like you go, girl. Like
Well,
I'm not gonna,
I mean,
like,
I don't have a. I mean, I suppose we would have to agree to disagree there, but I guess that would leave it for me. I don't know, Daniel. Do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I mean, I don't really understand this his whole argument. I think it's a bit weird. Not necessarily that I don't agree with the fact that abortion should be available at all times, right? I think abortion should be available to pregnant women, because at the end of the day, it is their body, and I think that's the argument that I hinge my
not just
pro-abortion
pregnant women.
stance on. Sorry.
But not just to pregnant women is what I'm saying. Like,
Yeah,
even, like-
obviously, it's of course, obviously, but that's an argument that obviously extends to pregnant women, right? It's not that being pregnant doesn't
Yeah.
remove
Well,
your
like, even after they're pregnant and they have
your
like,
bodily autonomy. Yes, of course,
not-
of course. That's why I'm saying. But it's like
Exactly.
your argument is kind of weird. I mean, just because they don't pay taxes, I don't think that's a great argument at all. I mean, there's a lot of people in society that don't pay taxes. It doesn't mean we should just get rid of them.
We could still like conscript them or use them for jury duty. That's. I mean,
Yeah,
I
but
think we kinda,
again,
went in
it's like
circles here.
that's not your point though.
I mean, I think I kind of understand your position. Like, I don't think it's totally consistent, but I like understand kind of what you believe. And I think we're kind of going in circles here. So I could just like let the next person go if there's somebody else who wants to make an argument or something.
All right. Yeah, I appreciate the discussion. That was a good discussion.
All right, thank you.
Max Almanac, you are being invited to speak. How are you doing today?
Hey, good. How are you? Can you hear me?
Yeah, what's going on?
Hey, so I know that you started off with an abortion debate, but that was what I was planning on talking about, if you don't mind.
Sure. What do you want to?
Yeah. Well, this time you actually have to defend your actual position or be pro-choice because I'm pro-life. So.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. So no. I saw one of the debates you had done a couple of weeks ago. I don't remember the person you were debating, but essentially your argument was you kept hammering down on why should a politician who lives 100 to 1,000 miles away be permitted to force a woman to undergo something that's potentially life-threatening.
Mhm.
Is that Steelman correctly?
Dead on.
Okay. Yeah, so I just have kind of a thought experiment for that, or kind of a hypothetical, because I'm not sure that you actually believe that.
Okay.
Because, and the reason I think this is, do you remember a couple of years ago that there was is this like TOS, if I talk about like school shootings and things like that, or
You can talk about.
I don't want to
school
ban your
shooting.
channel.
No, you're good.
Okay, yeah.
You know.
You remember that in Uvalde, Texas, the school shooting, everyone got extremely upset because the officers were negligent. They didn't go inside. And and even Merrick Garland, the DOJ, said had they gone in, then less kids would have died, right? So my point here would be, do you believe that there should in fact be any ramifications for the negligence on the part of whether it's individual officers or at the very least the department itself?
Good question. Off the top of my head, I don't know. It's kind of a moral gray area for me. Mostly because like I like to think about like, okay, well, in the moments of police officers, right? Even good police officers have to make very quick, very rash decisions based on very limited information, right? And
Right.
I think like if we lived in a system where like we jailed an officer for not making the right decision, even good officers could actually lead to detrimental outcomes. So that's one thing to consider.
Okay.
And then like on the other, maybe there is like a level of negligence that can be, attributed. And I would imagine that would be why police officers can go to jail for negligence of their duties.
Yeah, and that would be a legal standard. Like it would have to be proven in a court of law that it was
okay,
negligence.
I'm sorry.
Not
It's,
just,
I guess I'm not referring to like necessarily the legal. I'm referring to just like the overall moral, right? I agree with the legal distinction of like negligence and at what level that it seems to matter, because I think it's quite effective.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but even that though would still apply to other situations where I think you may in fact support legal ramifications. Where, like, for example, if like take the school shooting aspect out of it entirely, or the law enforcement aspect out of it entirely, if there was somebody who was being tortured in a basement, let's say for like a week or whatever, and then somebody killed them, and there were like 3 people that didn't do any of the torturing, didn't do the murder themselves, but they stood by the whole time, that would be negligence, correct? Or at the very least, they would be accomplices,
No.
right?
Well, no, not necessarily.
If I can interject, there is no law in the law. You don't have a duty to intervene, like in situations.
Okay. Do you think though that even if they don't now, do you think cops should have a duty to intervene?
Well, in some aspects, yes, and others, no. I know that doesn't seem like a very satisfying answer because, like, usually people they're expecting things to work within definitives, and I guess like my concern is that you're talking about a complex situation where, based on a series of metrics, can radically change the outcome of something, and so it would have to be a case by case basis, unfortunately.
Okay, but even by saying case by case, you're admitting that it could be possible.
Sure.
To get someone on negligence for something like that?
Sure.
Okay. So, I mean, I was just trying to apply this logic to your scenario because I sort of view abortion in a similar way, which is that when a woman, and this, by the way, this would apply only to like consensual pregnancy. Like, let's just say I grant all exceptions up front, and if we just focus on consensual or let's say elective abortions, right? Like this would, in my view, apply to this logic, where any time that you have consensual sex, you are, and you'll probably disagree, but in my view, you're consenting to, at the very least, the possibility of pregnancy. Even when you use contraception, it's not fallible, or I'm sorry, it's not infallible.
Yeah.
And so I would say, any time you have consensual sex, you are consenting to that responsibility from my worldview. Would you agree or disagree with that?
No.
Okay, why not?
Because I don't believe in using children as a form of retribution against negligent people.
Well, it's not retribution. Like I think that's actually the immoral position, would be to view children as some sort of a negative consequence, when in fact children would, from my worldview, would be a miracle, right?
So hold on. So then, if you said that if it's not a punishment, but yet you think that people should have to have children if they have sex, that would be retribution via child.
Well, I just think we're disagreeing on maybe the tenor of the word retribution. Like, I don't see it as a negative. Now, it could cause negative circumstances, like obviously children are expensive, obviously time consuming, and for women, of course, that's going to impact their career, whatever, or education and things like that. But I guess wouldn't it come down to wouldn't it be a good for society to have some sense of accountability for these things, and that if you're going to be promiscuous, that you can't just like off your own offspring whenever you feel like it, because you want to have your own fun?
Well, most people that's not the case.
You don't think most abortions are elective?
No, I'm saying I don't think that most abortions are like you're getting an abortion because you're just having so much sex and you ended up having a child, right? A lot of the times it's like you're just not ready.
Yeah, but that would still extend to.
But even then, I still wouldn't even argue with it, because it's like, I'm sorry, it's effectively retribution via child, and I just disagree using humans in that way.
Well, it's I still disagree that it's retribution in any way. Like that actually doesn't even make sense, because I don't even see it as forcing the child on the woman as much as I see it as precluding her from killing it. Like it's not a positive. It's not like.
I mean, did you not say that?
It would.
Sorry, go ahead.
Oh no, I was just saying it's more of a negative right, in my view of, like, you are not permitted to harm this other person and I know you probably disagree that it's another person, but just like put yourself.
No,
in
it is a
worldview,
person. The question
would
is
be-
whether or not it's up for moral consideration. That's what matters to me. Is and what I deem something to be worthy of moral consideration is whether or not that it effectively has had a conscious experience before, just as it would in the future.
Yeah, but that's totally arbitrary, right?
Yeah, but that's kind of morals. Morals in itself are arbitrary, but I think it's logically based. I think it follows and it works with just about any situation, right? You can list just about any hypothetical you like, and it would be cogent.
Well, I guess where I'm going is even essentially any line that you draw after birth, or I'm sorry, any line you draw after conception would be applied to someone who's already born, or it could easily be applied to someone who's born, right? Like even viability. If you take the viability example, like let's say hypothetically, if a child was born into a coma and they were born, they were alive, right? Their heart was beating, even potentially had brain activity. If a child was born but they were in a coma, and then that child stayed in a coma for 2 years after birth and then died without ever waking up, do you believe that child ever lived?
Yeah, it did live. I mean, technically it's alive.
So then viability is not your standard. How is that viability?
No, it's conscious experience.
Okay, even by that standard then, how were they ever consciously experiencing anything?
So they would have consciously experienced before, but I suppose, like, assuming a guarantee, right, that it will never ever come, like, it will never ever, like, recover out of it, then yeah, you're perfectly okay to pull the plug.
But pull the plug on what if it's
on
not
the unconscious baby that will never wake up?
Okay, I see. Okay, so you do think it's alive, you just think it's not worth protecting, right?
Yeah, literally Yeetus the fetus.
But it's not a fetus, right?
Yeah, no,
It'd be
sorry, Yeetus the beatus.
Born living human, right? Yeah, it would be Yeetus the born living human. So,
I mean, we did this with Terry Schiavo, did we not? We do this all the time, right? When somebody is never going to wake up, right? We find it morally permissible to terminate someone's life knowing that they will never wake up. We're perfectly okay with that.
that is debated. It's not like a moral, because now you're saying, when you say we determine XYZ, you just said morality is subjective, right?
Yes.
So we don't do anything. That would be an overgeneralization.
Well,
right?
I mean,
like,
I'm saying I agree.
debated.
I agree with that position, right? It seems to logic.
Right.
It's logically coherent. It makes sense, and like I'm willing to hear other people's argument towards it as to why it would not be acceptable, but I think it is. And I mean, the way that I determine like things to be moral versus immoral ultimately comes down to what leads to the best possible outcomes.
Okay. Even outcomes though is still, wouldn't you say? I guess it's hard to draw a line, right? Because from your worldview, which would be purely empirical, right? Like purely,
Yes.
If you can't taste, touch, smell it, if you can't measure it, it's not to be. In fact, I think I watched
or
another
possess
YouTube
any
and you said it
useful,
doesn't exist,
empirical
right?
information. Yeah, it basically doesn't exist. Yes.
Okay, so by that standard, then, if empiricism is all you have, David Hume said, he wrote a long time ago, you can't get an ought from an is. How could you draw any morals, subjective or objective, from empiricism?
Hmm.
Like, how could you ever say if empiricism is?
Yeah,
the
I mean,
only
I'm not
metric?
using empiricism to determine like my moral systems.
Well, you said outcomes, right? Wouldn't that be like empirically observed?
Well, the outcomes is like, for example, I believe that we ought survive, for example, but that's not
Yeah, but
really
why?
deriving an ought from an is. I
It is.
believe.
You're saying
well,
ought.
okay,
Why
so
ought
I
we
believe
survive?
that it's entropic, right? That it must be that way, right? Regardless of how we feel about it. It means that things that go from a higher energy state to a lower energy state of chaos, or rather from a spread out energy state of chaos.
Yeah, no, I mean, like, what are you saying is entropic? Like, I don't understand.
The desire of survival being entropic, because we come from a
Okay.
long line of eukaryotic organisms where the way that we've propagated ourselves has been through survival, and so there's like this innate drive to survival.
Yeah, but saying that there is an innate drive to survival still doesn't answer why there should be an innate drive for survival.
That's
It's
correct.
actually a naturalistic fallacy. You're saying because things are this way, because things naturally occur this way, then they ought to be that way. It's a naturalistic fallacy.
That's fair. Like you said, you can't derive an ought from an is. I'm saying where I get it from.
Okay. So let me ask you this then. If morality is subjective in this way, then how would you do you make any moral judgments on anyone else for anything ever?
Sure.
How could you do that if morality is subjective, then whatever moral stance they take would have to be just as valid as yours, right?
No,
How not?
because
If it's
my
subjective to
metric
them.
is survival, and what leads to better
Yeah,
outcomes.
but that's relative to you. If someone's metric was destruction, how could you argue against it?
Well, because that doesn't
Like anti-survival.
lead to better outcomes.
But better is loaded, right? Better,
Yes.
you're assuming your moral relative,
Yeah, got to
Your-
start somewhere.
your relative morality is right. Yeah, but
Yes.
you're assuming it's right.
Well, I think that I just think that people have different values, different value systems, and like at the very basal level, like people like desire to survive, and it's usually from like they want to experience things, and because people they have different interests, I want to see as many of those people having those things as possible.
Yeah, but I mean, I
Right,
don't
so
want to
they may have a different-
or go in circles or anything, but I mean, that's still you're still assuming your worldview is right, because
Uh-huh.
if you couldn't actually, you would actually have no basis to condemn someone if they had the exact
Sure, it does.
opposite.
It doesn't
of what you
propagate
said.
survival. It makes things worse for people. Then I'd be against you for that.
Yeah, but again, you can't explain why the propagation of survival is something we
Sure, I
ought to
can. It's
seek.
entropic.
It is entropic. Why ought it be?
No,
Right.
it's there's no again. You can't draw an ought from an is. That's fine. I
Exactly.
subjectively interpret it, so it's fine.
Yeah, it's all relative. I mean, I know we're going in circles. I don't want to bog it down or anything, but I think somehow abortion ended up being the least important thing we talked about, even though that's what I came on here to talk about. But but hey, it is what it is, I guess. So
Do you got anything else for me? That was an interesting conversation.
yeah, not really. I mean, I guess I should have just picked your hot take about morality being relative after all that. So, but yeah, so we'll just roll with that. That's what I ended up talking about. So, but yeah, you're good. You can move on to the next person. I don't want to take up too much time.
No problem. It was nice talking to you.
So
I appreciate
you
it.
too. Appreciate the convo. Thanks.